I could feel the cold, heavy lump forming in my throat the exact moment I read the notification on my glowing screen. It was 4:15 on a humid Saturday afternoon, and 6 piping hot, handcrafted dishes were resting on my kitchen counters, filling every corner of our home with the sweet, savoury aroma of freshly baked Southern comfort food. My 17-year-old daughter, Chloe, had spent 9 exhausting hours transforming our kitchen into a full-scale catering prep line for my mother's 70th birthday celebration. Every single detail had been mapped out, right down to the hand-drawn seating cards resting on our formal dining table. Then my mother's single group message landed like a sudden bomb in the family chat, informing all 23 invited relatives that the entire plan was officially cancelled. She announced that a country club friend had booked an exclusive private room at an upscale downtown restaurant instead, casually concluding the text with 3 brutal words that completely crushed my daughter's heart. Adults only, please. I stood completely frozen in the middle of my kitchen, staring at my phone as a heavy, painful quiet settled over the house. For over 25 years, I had played the obedient, quiet role of the reliable family worker bee, always stepping in to cook, decorate, clean up, and smooth over my mother's cold, condescending social hierarchy without ever raising my voice. My mother, Evelyn, managed our extended family with the strict precision of a military officer, constantly organising people into clear ranks, deciding who belonged at the main table and who was relegated to the back room. I had spent my entire adult life making quiet excuses for her subtle cruelty, endlessly translating her sharp arrogance into softer, manageable explanations so my children wouldn't feel the sting. But watching my teenage daughter upstairs, quietly hanging up the brand new dress she had bought specifically for the evening, made something inside my soul snap with absolute crystal clarity. I didn't send a furious rant to the group chat, nor did I waste my breath begging my mother to change her mind. Instead, I made one very quiet, deliberate decision, completely setting a brand new boundary that would permanently alter our family forever. Growing up under my mother's roof meant learning early on that every single family event had a hidden corporate hierarchy. There were the favoured relatives who received elaborate toasts just for showing up with a store-bought bottle of wine. And then there was me, the dependable daughter who was expected to cook the entire holiday meal and quietly manage the kitchen cleanup. When I bought the local breakfast diner downtown after years of working the early morning line, my mother didn't celebrate my hard work. She simply viewed it as an extension of my designated role as the family caterer. Year after year, I hosted the massive holiday dinners, baked the complex pastries, and organised the family reunions, all while receiving subtle, backhanded compliments about my humble, simple lifestyle. I tolerated that mistreatment for decades because I mistakenly believed keeping the peace was the most important gift I could give my family. However, I failed to realise that by constantly softening my mother's sharp edges, I was slowly teaching my own daughter to accept the exact same low rank in our family tree. The entire idea for the 70th birthday dinner had come directly from Chloe, who expressed her love through hard work and thoughtful action rather than big speeches. Over the course of 2 weeks, she had secretly interviewed every aunt, uncle, and cousin, gathering their absolute favourite childhood food memories to build a fully customised birthday menu. She spent over $300 of her hard-earned babysitting and diner tip money on high-end ingredients, refusing to let me pay for a single grocery run because she wanted the celebration to be her personal gift. Chloe meticulously tested 4 different batches of an old family peach cobbler recipe until the sweet, buttery crust matched the exact memory my mother always bragged about. She even hand-lettered 23 elegant place cards with beautiful gold borders, making sure the biggest card sat at the head of the long table for her grandmother. Chloe poured her entire heart into creating a deeply meaningful gift, completely unaware that she was setting herself up for a devastating lesson in family coldness. 3 weeks prior to the event, I had explicitly confirmed the details in writing with my mother, making sure she knew Chloe was preparing the entire feast from scratch at our home. My mother had sent back a brief, dismissive response, but I convinced myself that once she saw the immense effort and tasted the nostalgic cobbler, her tough exterior would completely melt. That naive hope completely shattered at 4:15 p.m. on the day of the party, when she broadcasted the abrupt change of venue to all 23 family members simultaneously. When I called her directly to explain that the food was hot and ready, she didn't even pick up her phone, opting instead to text me a cold message stating that a high-end restaurant was simply more appropriate for a milestone birthday than our cramped home. She topped off the insult by suggesting I could pack up the homemade cobbler in a container and bring it along to the restaurant if I really wanted to. When I stepped out of the hallway to check on my daughter, expecting to find her in tears, I saw something that broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. Chloe was quietly standing over the stove in her fancy party dress, calmly wrapping up the hot serving dishes in aluminum foil without saying a single word. When she finally looked up at me, her eyes were completely dry, and she offered a faint, heartbroken smile, whispering that it was totally fine because she was already used to being pushed aside by her grandmother. That simple statement hit me harder than any screaming argument ever could, instantly bringing back years of forgotten memories, where my daughter's minor recitals and milestones were casually brushed off by my mother. In that exact moment, I realised my constant attempts to keep the peace had actually trained my own child to accept emotional neglect as a completely normal part of life. I knew right then that if I allowed my mother to walk over us one more time, I would be sealing my daughter's fate for the rest of her adult life. My brother and my husband both urged me to play along, insisting that we should just swallow our pride, leave the food in the fridge, and head to the restaurant to avoid causing a massive scene on my mother's big night. They were operating on the exact same unwritten rulebook that had governed our family for generations, believing that preserving my mother's public image was far more important than protecting a young girl's self-worth. But as I watched Chloe neatly label the leftover glass containers with blue painter's tape, packing away 9 hours of dedicated love into cold, dark shelves, I decided I was officially done following those toxic rules. I picked up my phone and sent a final private text to my mother, telling her calmly that I loved her, but I would not be attending the restaurant event without my daughter. I clearly let her know that our home doors were unlocked, the table was fully set with her gold-bordered card at the head, and that she was more than welcome to join us whenever she was ready. Instead of engaging in a messy text war, I took 2 simple, clear photographs. One of our long dining table holding all 23 personalised place cards, and another of the gorgeous golden peach cobbler sitting hot on the counter. I posted both pictures directly into the main family group chat, adding a short, warm note stating that the dinner Chloe had spent weeks preparing was officially served, and that every single family member, especially the children, was welcome to come over and eat. Within 20 minutes, the silence broke as my cousins, aunts, and their young children began pulling into our driveway, completely ignoring the restaurant plan in favour of a warm house where everyone was actually welcomed. 14 people crowded around our dining room table that night, filling the space with loud laughter, second helpings, and genuine connection, while my mother sat across town in a mostly empty, quiet restaurant room with a handful of country club acquaintances. My mother never showed up to our house that evening, but the empty chair holding her gold-bordered place card remained untouched at the head of the table, serving as a silent boundary line between the old rules and our new reality. At 8:40, the very next morning, the sharp sound of our front doorbell echoed through the quiet house, signalling an unexpected visitor. I walked to the entrance and pulled open the heavy door to find my mother standing on the front porch, holding a plain paper bag in her gloved hands with a tense, rigid posture. She immediately tried to regain control of the situation, sternly demanding that I post a public apology in the family chat to frame the entire weekend as a simple misunderstanding so we could return to normal. I looked her dead in the eye, spoke with absolute calm, and informed her that I would not be lying to protect her reputation, and that the only person she needed to speak with was sitting in the backyard. She stood completely still for a long moment, processing the fact that her usual guilt trips were no longer working, before slowly walking through the kitchen and stepping out onto the back porch steps, where Chloe was sitting alone. From the kitchen window, I quietly watched as my proud mother slowly lowered herself down onto the cold concrete step right next to my daughter, completely abandoning her usual royal composure. She reached into her paper bag, pulled out a small glass container of the leftover peach cobbler that my aunt had dropped off at her house late the night before, and began eating it quietly with a silver fork. For nearly 20 minutes, the two of them sat side by side on those steps, talking softly in a private conversation that I couldn't hear, as my mother slowly read through the detailed handwritten menu Chloe had created for her. When my mother finally stood up to leave, her sharp posture had visibly softened, and though she only offered a brief, indirect compliment about the food as she walked out the front door, I knew the balance of power in our family had permanently shifted. From that day on, we stopped competing for a seat at my mother's restrictive table, choosing instead to build our own open space where every single person is always valued, welcomed, and loved.